Suicide Squad is a great movie, and here's my unpopular opinion why. It had great action scenes. It had great performances by Margot Robbie, Jai Courtney, Will Smith. These characters are characters I grew up loving, and I think these performances for these characters was amazing. Now, I feel this movie is pretty much the same thing as what Tom Holland's character was in the Civil War movie. Tom Holland portrayed Spider-Man, and not a lot, just enough to let you know that you can't wait for Homecoming, and you're excited for Homecoming to come out. And when that movie hits theaters, you're going to go see it immediately, and you're going to love it because he did a great job. This movie was an entire movie dedicated to that premise. It was villains, and this is DC establishing their villains, something Marvel desperately needs to do. The only villain that is really memorable in the Marvel movies is Loki. I mean, who else is really that memorable within the Marvel Cinematic Universe? DC has a movie entirely dedicated to establishing these characters. Now, it doesn't go into full detail about their backstory. It doesn't tell you how Boomerang came to be Captain Boomerang. It doesn't tell you how Floyd Lawton comes to be, Deadshot. It's very much just basic. These are the characters. These are their abilities. This is a little bit of their character. And now, in the future, these characters can be used. They can be pick and choose who we're going to put in these movies. And I feel this is going to really, really spice up the DCEU. I can't wait to see the Batman movies with Jared Leto's Joker and Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. I think it's going to be great. I saw enough of them in the Suicide Squad to know I'm pretty excited to see what they can do in the future. Just like with Will Smith, who you can pretty much put him in any DC movie and he'll fit. Will Smith can pretty much, when he's motivated, he can do great work. We've seen it in the past. Lately, it hasn't really been that way, but I feel this character can really motivate him to do great work like he's done before and really up the level and up the ante of all the other characters and all the other performers in these movies, in turn making these movies great. I was a fan of this movie from beginning to end. Now, I'm not saying the movie's perfect. I know there's, issues with the flow of the movie. It doesn't really sync up from scene to scene. There are a couple scenes in there that don't really fit the plot, the direction of this movie, like the bar scene. As much as I love the dialogue in that bar scene, and it actually really painted a picture for the Diablo character that you don't really get to see throughout the rest of the movie. And I feel that's a very necessary thing. However, it did just kind of feel like it was thrown into the middle of this action movie. It's like watching a Die Hard movie and John McClane is going off just shooting guns and fighting and all this. And then he kind of stops, walks into a bar, has a couple drinks, talks about his past, and then goes right back into shooting people. It kind of felt kind of just thrown in there, didn't really fit the flow of the movie. However, this movie did establish characters that I want to see in the future. The cinematography, it was beautiful. The cinematography in this movie, the camera angling, everything about this movie to me screamed, we have a future. We have something that we can do with these characters. There's so many characters within the DC universe that are all very interesting. And this is why I've been more of a fan of the DC comics as opposed to Marvel. Marvel has great characters, but DC has more fleshed out characters that you want to see do a lot. Deadshot is one example. We've already been told Deathstroke is going to be in the Batman movie, which is another character that I feel is amazing, that has a great backstory, and even without the backstory, it's just going to be great to see Deathstroke in a live-action movie just being the, badass assassin mercenary that he is. Harley Quinn was first introduced in the animated series, Batman animated series, and I feel she did a great job portraying that character and kind of modernizing it and putting it in a more realistic world. They did the cameo with her full-on costume in the movie as kind of like a dream sequence, flashback kind of thing. But I really like that. Another complaint I hear about this movie is the fact that the movie tends to just spell out who all these characters are. Literally, it's like stats that just come up and show you who these characters are. But I feel that's a good thing. It's very endearing to see within this movie. The movie isn't about, we're going to give backstory to all these characters, and I think there's about 9 new characters, 9 new real characters put into this movie, and they're not really doing backstory on all these characters, but they are giving you enough so that you know who they are, and you can see kind of what kind of character they are, just enough to know that we can pick and choose which character we want, place them in a movie, and that villain, and you want to see more of that villain. This takes a more heroic turn of a villain, so they're more, you connect to them a little bit more when you see them later on. Harley Quinn has already been announced to have her own movie coming up, introducing even more characters. Now, again, I feel all the characters is another complaint these DC movies have. We're introducing so many characters all at once. But I feel that that's actually a great idea. Let's go back and look at the Marvel movies again. Compare and contrast. Comparatively, they're doing great work with their movies. However, again, like I said, their villains are very forgettable. Aside from Loki, all their villains are kind of just whatever, just placements of plot. And these characters, I don't feel can do this for very long. I mean, we've already have talks about Chris Evans not picking up, the shield again and being Captain America in the future. Robert Downey Jr. is getting a little old, and it's already gotten to a point where he's not even Iron Man anymore. It's Robert Downey Jr. sitting in front of a green screen, and they put little digital things in his face, and then a CGI Iron Man flies around, and he just voices it. It's going to get to a point where even that's not going to be believable anymore. He's getting a little older, and it's not going to be as we remember it now. Now, they're introducing a lot of characters, a lot of plot that's being jam-packed into these movies. However, in the future, these characters can be rearranged, placed around, and we can see these movies grow and grow and grow, and in time, if we're patient enough, these movies will become great cinematic adventures. We've really just started judging these movies way too early. And I know you might say it's not early. This is the 3rd movie within the universe, and people already off the cuff didn't really care about Man of Steel, and Batman v Superman had, mixed reactions at best. Suicide Squad was supposed to be their saving grace, and I feel that the people didn't really care. People didn't really, they wanted it to succeed. They loved the trailers. They went in with high hopes, but I feel that they just kind of, their high hopes were not all there. They had high hopes, but at the same time, they didn't really expect much. So there was disappointment, but at the same time, it was so easy to just push the movie aside and say, that wasn't good. And we've come very, very comfortable doing that with these DC movies. And I feel that we're not really, because we're becoming so comfortable doing that, we're not really looking at these movies in the way we're supposed to be. We're looking at them as critics as opposed to looking at them as just fans. I'm a fan of Katana, and a lot of people said, her character was pointless. What was she even doing there? Well, I love that character, and to see her there made me very excited, because knowing that character, I'm excited to see what she can do later on, considering I feel she nailed it. I feel that she did a great job portraying Katana, Captain Boomerang. I've seen this character in the comics, and he just was not that kind of character, but that take on that character was very interesting, and I really liked it. We've taken it, I've watched the Arrow television series, and Captain Boomerang was in that series, and they tried making him more of a badass kind of guy, and it didn't really work for me. That take on Captain Boomerang wasn't really great. However, this take on Captain Boomerang I loved, and it's kind of a surprising thing, considering Jai Courtney isn't really considered, to be playing these great characters. We've seen him in the past, and no one really liked his performances. That's I think that's going to be the defining thing for him, is playing Captain Boomerang. It's going to define him as an actor, playing these kind of badass, but at the same time silly, goofy, quippy kind of characters, and not really. He's more of like a cowardly badass. He's the kind of guy that will fight if he has to, but he's more looking out for himself, and if I don't have to fight, I'm not going to. And I think that's a perfect characterization for Captain Boomerang, considering his power is, I throw boomerangs. Killer Croc, as much of a racial stereotype as he was, I still feel he was pretty cool. I really liked him, and the effects, the makeup effects on him were actually very impressive. I was expecting a more CGI kind of character, and this was all practical effects, and I thought that looked great. Harley Quinn, of course, did great. Will Smith as Deadshot did great. Jared Leto. Now, Jared Leto did his take on the Joker, and I feel this is more of like a Heath Ledger meets, Southern California gangster kind of guy, and, mobster. But this is something that I feel is important to the DC universe. We've seen the Joker so much throughout the years. We've seen the Joker played by so many people and so many different variations, and it's almost like everything that has to do with DC and Batman especially has to have the Joker in it. From the animated series to, the Michael Keaton Batman, to Christian Bale's Batman, Heath Ledger. We've seen him in the animated series. We've seen him in multiple animated series, actually. I thought Batman Beyond was going to be a great series past the Joker. No more Joker. And then they still released a movie featuring the Joker. And there's no complaint there, really, because I love the Joker, and I especially love Mark Hamill's Joker, which was, again, the Joker in the Batman video games. I don't think there's been a Batman video game without the Joker. He had to be in every single one of those games, from Arkham Asylum to Arkham City, Arkham Origins, and Arkham Knight. He had a cameo in every single one of those movies. Or video games, I'm sorry. This, to me, was either a make or break kind of Joker. And I feel that if he would have portrayed the same thing we've seen over and over again, it would have failed. The fact that he was different, the fact that he did his own thing, really made him stand out as his own Joker. And that's what I feel is going to push the new Batman, in a positive direction. The Joker, of course, as much as we've seen him, and as much as people might start to get tired of him and say, yeah, I get it, the Joker. I don't need him in every single Batman feature. This is a Joker that we can look forward to and say, I don't know that Joker. I've seen all the other Jokers, and it's kind of like a Heath Ledger thing. And not to put down Heath Ledger's performance, because I feel that's probably one of the best comic book movies of all time, and Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker was a major part of that. but we've seen a little bit of it. It was a new take, but it was kind of the same thing as what we've already seen. You know, we've seen the darkness. There was not as many silly jokes, but he was still, you know, the Joker. This guy, Jared Leto's Joker, was phenomenal, in my opinion. I wasn't expecting much. I hated the tattoos. I hated the, you know, silver, you know, grill in his mouth. I especially hated the hand tattoo of the smile. I thought that was just dumb. Like, why? Why not just actually put a smile on his face? Why have a tattoo on his hand that he uses to cover up, and that's the smile? You know, it was stupid in my opinion, but seeing it in action, I thought it stood out. It was something different, and it was actually pretty scary, and that's what the Joker should be. Heath Ledger's Joker, I wasn't really scared of. You know, even Jack Nicholson's Joker, I wasn't really scared of. Now, there was that one scene in the movie where the hand buzzer where he shocks the guy to death. That was pretty scary to me as a kid. But growing up, it just wasn't scary. You know, Heath Ledger's Joker, it was weird, it was creepy, it was scary in a if you were there kind of sense. But it was hard to put yourself in that situation without having to break away from thinking, I just want to hang out with that guy. He seems like a cool guy just to hang out with. You know, he seemed very interesting in that sense. However, Jared Leto's Joker, I don't want to hang out with that kind of person. Especially knowing how powerful he is in the crime world. You know, he was actually really scary. And that, to me, is what's going to drive this new Joker and this new direction that these DC movies are taking. Margot Robbie was a great, you know, I don't want to say she was a supporting character because, you know, this movie was her movie. This was Harley Quinn, Deadshot, you know, it was their movie. Which is another complaint I hear. This is a movie that's supposed to be multiple people. This is a movie that's supposed to be a movie of characters. You know, the worst heroes you've ever seen. And these are bad guys that can be brought together to do some good. You know, and this is something that I feel is a legitimate complaint. However, it's something that people tend to really critically think about as this is a standalone movie, that this is its own thing, the Suicide Squad, without really thinking that we might see what they did in the past. They might break out. They might do other things. This is not just Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Killer Croc, Boomerang. They're all going to be Suicide Squad and they're just going to stay Suicide Squad. You know, they might break away. They might do other things, and I'm excited to see what they can do later on. This is pretty much like a 2-hour-long Tom Holland in the Civil War movie cameo, you know, thing. You know, it's a movie of just a bunch of cameos. And I'm really excited to see what they do in the future. Now, not saying it's going to be perfect. They're going to have some stumbles along the way. I mean, everybody does. I mean, Marvel we tend to think of as perfect, but they're not. Let's not forget the flaw, the big flaw that is Thor 2. That is a movie I hated. I saw it in theaters. The next week, I forgot I even saw that movie. There's times I forget that movie even came out. I can't remember a thing about the plot, aside from, I think, spoilers. I think Loki died, and then turns out he didn't die. You know, it's just, what was that movie? You know, aside from just introducing another one of the Infinity Stones, but a very forgettable Infinity Stone. I could say the same thing about Iron Man 3. You know, how are you going to have an Iron Man movie with no Iron Man? And the villain, I was very invested in that villain, only to find out I'm not invested in that villain at all. And I think I heard from somewhere, I'm sorry I can't remember where, but I think they compared the villain in Iron Man 3, can't remember his name now, to the Riddler and Batman Forever. And I feel that's a very, very valid comparison right there. It's pretty much the same thing. A guy who looks up to this millionaire genius and then gets turned down and turns evil. You know, it's the same thing. So yes, there's going to be stumbles along the way, and I feel like they are stumbling, but it's because they're trying to hurry up and go. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, again, Suicide Squad, they're introducing about 9 new characters. These are 9 new characters that can be placed in all these movies that I'm excited to see what all 9 of them can do. And it's going to be great. I assure you, you know, Wonder Woman looks great. I'm ready to see what that movie can bring us. I'm actually pretty much starting to get on board with this new Flash movie. I'm really excited to see what they can do with that. I'm not a big fan of Jason Momoa, but I loved him in the Game of Thrones series. You know, however small that role was, I think he stood out. He's very memorable, and I'm ready to see what he can bring to the table as Aquaman. And from the Comic-Con trailer that was released, he seemed to do a great job. So I'm ready to see what DC does, and one of the biggest movies within the DC universe is Suicide Squad, considering it's introducing the villains. It's starting to get you used to these villains, something that the Marvel Universe surely needs to do. And I'm excited to see what they can do in the future. This movie, to me, was beautifully shot, was beautifully performed, and yes, there were some stumbles along the way, but all in all, I really, really don't think this movie deserves its 26% score on Rotten Tomatoes. I feel it should be up there around like a 70, not really an 80, more like 70 to 75. You know, but certainly should not be rotten. It's more of a fresh, in my opinion, and that is my unpopular opinion. Now, if you like what you see, please hit that like button. Like it, unlike it, like it again. If you agree with me, leave it in the comments. If you disagree with me, leave it in the comments. Going through these reviews, I see a lot of people actually really do like the DCEU. If you are a fan of the DCEU so far, let me know, because I certainly am. I loved Man of Steel. I thought Batman v Superman got a bad rap. Sure, it had some flaws, but I think it was pretty good. And definitely, I really enjoyed Suicide Squad. So yes, I am a fan of the DC Extended Universe. If you are as well, leave it in the comments. If you're not, leave it in the comments. Let me know what you think, guys. I'm here for you. Please subscribe. I'll be putting up videos a little bit more often, hopefully. I recorded this video a little bit earlier. Did not like the outcome, so I decided to do it just free form. Sit down in front of this camera, rant to you for about 30 minutes almost about how I feel. Let me know what you think. Did you like this form? Would you like me to really sit down and write a script? Just, feedback. I need the feedback, guys. But anyways, leave a comment, subscribe, like the video, and I will see you guys again later.